How's it going, everybody? Today I'm going to be talking about the new album from Spheric Universe Experience. The name of this album is Back Home, and before I get into that nitty-gritty, let's take a look at the cover. So, boom, there it is. Check it out. Really, really cool cover. I really like it aesthetically. It just looks really neat. It's like almost like you're going through a portal or interdimensional kind of, like a wormhole or something like that. Or everything's being like constructed and deconstructed around you as this person's kind of going through. It looks almost more like it's being deconstructed, here more in like the foreground, and then like in the background it's being like constructed. You can see almost like a world and like a tree and grass, but all around that too you also see what looks like it's like a galaxy, and there's stars and like the purple kind of blues of what you'd expect, seeing galaxies or things like that. So it's really, really cool. Really draws the eyes in, and really you want to take in the whole thing. Like I said, in the foreground is almost around the edges, it's almost like some kind of a construct, but then it's like being opened up or whatnot into world or whatnot, as is traveling through the interstellar space or something. I'm really not sure, or it could be vice versa. They could be coming from the worlds to this construct or whatnot. But either way, it just looks really, really cool. So I really love this cover. As far as letting you know what to expect, I mean, it definitely does. Because this album is definitely heavy in the prog, the progressive metal, but there's a lot of power metal too. Like I would consider this to be like a power prog metal album, and this cover, I feel like, really conveys that. I don't think there's any mistake in that. If you were to pick this up in the record shop and just look at the cover and the name of the band, Spheric Universe Experience, and you see that cover, I think you get the impression this is kind of like a power metal or progressive metal style album. So I give it A+ on both fronts, aesthetic and conveying what to expect on the album if you had no prior knowledge and you're just looking at the cover. So I really, really dig it. But let's talk about the album itself now. This bad boy's got 13 songs on it and comes in at about an hour and 9 minutes. It's a little bit on the long side. It's quite the journey from beginning to end. It really feels like an adventure, like I said, a journey, an experience. And I mean, it tells you that, right? The Spheric Universe Experience. It's telling you pretty much in the band name, this is going to be an experience for sure. But musically, what you get here is a lot of, there's some absolute phenomenal keyboard work here. Absolutely phenomenal keyboard work here. It's just nuts. And the guitar work also is just crazy. And there's times where the bass just really, really shines and gets its own kind of little bit of a spotlight, and it's just chugging along, and the drums are wild. A lot of progressive elements here, musically. But again, there's that power metal style kind of sprinkled in here and there as well. And you get your moments of that real prog style where there's a lot going on, just a lot going on. It almost feels like organized chaos, but it all feels very deliberate. You don't really get lost in it. The production quality of this album is very high, and it was mixed very well because you could still distinctly hear everything, even when guitar and keyboard and everything is just going crazy, and the tempo really picks up and it's going wild. You can really, really distinctly hear everything, and still follow along and really jam to it. And those moments are really cool when they hit, because you're already into the song, but then that rhythm really hits it, and you got that keyboard just going wild, and the guitar, and you're just you're just digging it. You're just really, really in it. Um, and vocally, really, really solid vocals. I always give props, for this style of music and sound when the vocalist can like keep up with it all. And because, a lot of the rhythms and a lot of the sounds and the tempos, things are ever changing, a lot of times. And to me, I feel like that would be very difficult for a vocalist to really kind of keep up with all of that and all the different changes and work with that. But he does a really great job, really great range, really great versatility here, and sounds great. And one thing too about this album is both musically and vocally is a lot of great melodies here. Sometimes like the progressive style can be too much from start to finish, but here, those moments where it gets real heavy and everything is really kind of going wild. Those are like sprinkled here and there, but you get a lot of other moments where it's just more of the melody and more melodic, and so you never feel like you're just lost. You feel like you're being carried through this journey or whatnot. Then when the crazy moments hit, you're really kind of digging it, and then it kind of gets back into more of like a melodic style, and the vocals come back in, and so I feel like they did a really, really good job as far as that goes. And again, there's a lot of variety here on this album. It really exceptional musicianship. I can't overstate the musicianship on this album. It really is top notch, and the vocals are really great too. But I really just want to highlight the musicianship here. I mean, the keyboards, everything is just wow. It's just always impressive, and the songwriting, it was really, really great. I really enjoyed how they arranged the songs. It starts out with track one, which is kind of just a intro thing to. It's got kind of a not mystical sound, but like a spacey kind of sound, just to really set the tone. I mean, the name of the song is called On Board SUE5-2469. I mean, it's kind of letting you know you're like in some kind of a ship or something, exploring outer space, and it really gives you that vibe. And then track two, Final Fate, hits, and oh man, does it have a filthy guitar riff right off the rip, man. I mean, it is heavy, and I was sitting there, and track one is more just like melodic, and like I said, kind of a spacey sound, just an intro kind of getting you in. And then when track two starts and that guitar just hit, I was like, oh, anyone who watches my reactions, can just like picture me. I was sitting there just listening, and it hit. I was just like, man, it just hits hard and heavy, and it really just gets you going, and it's just awesome. And then as the songs go, it's really, I don't want to say it's very consistent, but every song, one thing I really liked is every song has its own sound. It doesn't sound like anything's bleeding together, but everything sounds like it, it all flows very well. There's a couple songs, in all honesty, I'd have to think about like which two, but my only thing is I would probably say they could have trimmed out a couple songs to make it feel a little bit more concise, because an hour and 9 minutes is pretty long, and for the most part, like I said, it all feels it doesn't really feel like it's dragging too much. But there's a couple spots in the album where I was kind of like, it didn't quite feel like it had the same momentum maybe as other groupings of songs. So there's a couple that I probably would trim, and I think that would help with just more of a concise, more of a full experience without a couple moments of just downtime or feeling like it's just kind of dragging just a little bit. But other than that, everything feels like it definitely belongs, and it's just this story, or this adventure, this experience, that's going on. Um, when it get the pinnacle. I really like Final Fate. Track 2, 3, 4, and 5 are really great grouping of songs. Track 6, Legacy, that might be one that I would trim personally. I feel like it changes up the momentum a little bit, too much to where it takes you out of the feeling or the of the album, a little bit. I might would trim that one out personally. It's not a bad song, but I feel like in the context of the rest of the album, it kind of it gives you that moment of pause to where you kind of start thinking, that you're ready for it to like get back into that momentum, or that feeling, or that you had prior to that song. But then it comes back out with Defenders of Light in track 7 that really picks things back up again. But then it really, really shines. Like the pinnacle of this album is track 8, 9, and 10, in my opinion. Track 8, Synchronicity, is a instrumental track, and track 9, The Absolution Part 1, also is an instrumental track. And they both lead into the Absolution Part 2, which is track 10. Absolution Part 1 and is really connected to Part 2, but I also like to include Synchronicity, because that really kind of leads into Absolution Part 1, which then leads into the Absolution Part 2. And it just really, really great instrumental tracks that, again, set that spacey kind of exploration kind of vibe to it, that like this grand, epic, universal kind of scale to it. And this leads into the Absolution Part 2, which is just an epic song. It's 7 minutes long, and this is the most, I would say, power metal song on the album. Like I said, there's shades in it. This isn't like a full-on 100% progressive metal album. There's moments where it is 100% full-on, but I really think there's a healthy dose of power metal in here as well that really kind of evens it out a bit. But this song, Absolution Part 2, is the most power metal song on the album, in my opinion. And I just want to say off the bat, even if you were not going to listen to this album or whatever, for whatever reason, you decide that it's not really your cup of tea or something that you want to hear, I, I encourage you, I implore you to listen to the Absolution Part 1 and the Absolution Part 2, because it's just an epic moment on this album, and just the Absolution Part 2, even on its own, is just so sick. It's just sweeping, and it just sounds so epic. The vocals and the music, and it's really got a high tempo. You really feel like you're soaring almost like up into the sky. And they got moments of like choirs, and it's just really, really epic. The music there, and the keyboards, and there are symphonic elements throughout the whole album, at times, and like with this song, it just really has that grand, bombastic scale and sound to it. So I was floored when this came up. I was all in with Synchronicity and then Absolution Part 1, and I was like, these are leading into Absolution Part 2. So these are really setting my hopes high for this song, and it does not disappoint. Epic song. And then it goes to track 11, Rebirth, which is another instrumental song, but it starts out, it's really cool. It starts out with, it almost sounds like a voice recording, like, someone took like a voice recording in the spaceship or whatnot, and you hear this dude talking about like, he's lost the other members of the crew or whatnot. He's like trying to get back home, and talking about there's these aliens or something that they had battled, and stuff like that. It's really, really cool. And then it becomes instrumental. And again, it just really gives you that sense of being out in space and exploring, and, whatever, the senses of danger, or, senses of wanting to get back home, being lost in this vastness of space. And then it closes out pretty well too with Of the Last Plague, and then the final track, Dreams Will Survive, which is 9 minutes and 31 seconds, which is just another really great way to close out the album. It's got a thought-provoking, somewhat not quite helpless, because it also has a hopeful sound to it. You know, it just is a really great final track that kind of has some encouragement to it, that there is hope, and that certain things will carry on. I mean, the name of the song is Dreams Will Survive, and really does a great job of just kind of closing it out, not necessarily on a somber note, but you know, it's a very fitting final track. So I always love when an album closes out strong, and this one really does. It's just an epic closing song. So, you know, that's really what I have to say about it. It just musically is incredible, and just incredible musicianship, just with guitars, keyboard, bass, the drums, everything. So, I mean, if you're into just really incredible musicianship and intricate songwriting and very, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like very deliberate. It just, everything is put together very well. Like I said, the production is very high, and the songwriting is just impressive, to say the least. Very talented group of folks here, and the vocals do a fantastic job as well on that front. So I really enjoyed this album quite a lot. I would not be surprised if this is in my top 5 favorite albums for this month of May, because I really enjoyed it. It's an experience. I've listened to it several times now, and I really love it. I highly recommend this. And like I said, if you don't listen to anything else, listen to the Absolution Part 1 and Part 2. But I also really recommend the album. But if I give you one song to listen to if you just want to give it one chance, and you're like, tell me one song that gives like the best idea of the vibe of the whole album, so I can decide if I want to hear the whole thing. Personally, I would say go with track 4, which is Transcending, Real Life. Really love that song, and I really think it gives you a great representation of what to expect on the whole album. So I think that will draw you in, personally. But anywho, that's what I got to say about that. Let me know in the comments down below if you've heard this album already and what your thoughts are. Just a beautiful, sweeping, epic sounding album. I loved it. I really loved it. It just, you know, it wanted to make you feel like you're kind of almost out, like exploring space or something like that. At least I think that's what it's meant to convey, you know, to the listener while you're listening, and they just did a great job with it. You know, it just sounds epic. And yeah, that's what I got for you on that. That's Spheric Universe Experience, and the name of the album is Back Home. Check it out. I really enjoyed this bad boy here, and I'll catch you all next time. Ranger out.